Training camp is always a time of hope and optimism for all 32 NFL teams, but between us, we know they don't really have a chance. One of the other things that training camp is good for is the players that are going to be sweethearts in the eyes of the fans, players who we think, we hope, we imagine will have a chance to make the roster and make an impact on the team. And this year, guys, the Chiefs have so many high upside players that I've had to break this into a series by position. And today we're starting with the offensive line. And the number one prospect that I want to talk about on this list is Eza Pole from Washington State, a UDFA offensive tackle. This is his athletic profile here, an RAS score of 7.3, not the highest, but certainly far from the lowest. He is 6'5", which is a great height for an offensive lineman, 323 pounds, with 23 reps on the bench press, a 29-inch vertical leap, an 8'4" broad jump, but he does have athleticism. I promise you that. He had a 5.3 40-yard dash, which is not great, but is definitely serviceable at the offensive tackle position, with a 10-yard split of 1.87. Not a great number there. A shuttle drill, a 20-yard short shuttle of 4.72, and a three-cone drill of 8.03. 33-inch arms, 33 and over 33 and a half inch arms, and 9.8-inch hands. He is very new to the sport of football. So this is a player who does have a lot of upside. He is a former basketball player. If he continues to develop he should have a floor as a swing tackle, something you wouldn't necessarily expect from a guy who went undrafted. And if he continues to develop at the same rate, he is someone who, when he stepped on the football field and decided to dedicate himself to the sport, really excelled very quickly. So if he does continue to develop at the same rate, I think that he could be a starter somewhere at the offensive tackle positions. Now, he does have a lot to do before he gets into that place. He is raw. He does not have a lot of the technique that you need, which also kind of is a plus because he doesn't have a whole lot of negative stuff that he has developed over the years to compensate for this or that. But he does have the athleticism. If he can take the coaching, he should be able to become a real NFL player. He does have plus size and good reach, and he's going to turn heads once in a while in camp. That is for sure. I guarantee you that. The question with Eza Pole is whether or not he can translate that into something that is his norm rather than the exception. If he can do that, he is going to be a starting level player in the NFL. Not immediately. I think that this year is probably a redshirt season for him. I think that he will spend this year on the practice squad. But I thought the same thing about Ethan Driscoll last year, and Ethan Driscoll was a 53-man roster guy the entire year. And I think part of that hesitation to redshirt Ethan Driscoll on the practice squad was because he could get plucked off at any time, and I think that he would have been. Eza Pole probably, because he has so much development to do, is not going to be plucked off of an NFL practice squad, at least not immediately. So a few weeks there at least, and he should be an NFL player. Then we have Dalton Cooper, another UDFA offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State, another guy who transferred in college. 9.01 RAS. That is a good score, even though some of it was unofficial. But he is 6'5", basically 6'5 and a half, 323 pounds as well, and did 26 reps on the bench press. So he has everything in this department that you would hope for from an offensive tackle. He had a 28-inch vertical leap, so a guy who does have some explosiveness, even if it's not an extreme amount of explosiveness. A 9-foot broad jump. He had a 4.99 40-yard dash, but don't get too excited because I do think that he is too stiff to play offensive tackle. I think that he will find his way to offensive guard, a 10-yard split of 178, which was projected, and a short shuttle of 4.64 with a 3-cone drill of 7.9, 33.5-inch arms. Again, I do think he is probably too stiff to play offensive tackle. Maybe he's not, right? So there are some players that can overcompensate for their stiffness with technique, and he does seem like a guy whose technique could be clean enough that he does stick at offensive tackle. Pardon me. He's a good athlete for the offensive line, but he's not someone who's going to be eye-popping. He is able to move, and he is able to get downfield. He's one of these guys that once he's moving is very hard to stop. The real concern with him for me would be pass blocking at offensive tackle, but I think if he is a guard, he should be able to get all of that stuff cleaned up because he doesn't have to be on an island quite as much. Pardon me. Again, he does have good reach, and he uses it well on the field, getting his arms out, getting his his hands in front of him. And like I said, all of that technique, he does have some technique built up. And I think, again, this is probably a red shirt year for him, if for no other reason than the fact that the Chiefs have so many offensive linemen. They carried 10 last year. Now, it didn't help them late in the season because they did not have the upper end athletes at the offensive tackle position, especially the left tackle spot, obviously. But if this is someone who grows into a right tackle in the NFL, that would not surprise me. I think that he does have swing tackle potential, which means that he could be put out there at left tackle. I think he would need help at the left tackle position. I think that he does have the athleticism to play right tackle. There are 5 players, I think, on the offensive line here to talk about. So then we have C.J. Hansen, a guy who was a draft pick last year for the Kansas City Chiefs. An RAS score of 9.86, did not do the agility testing, so probably should be an incomplete. I wish they would come up with something to designate like an incomplete score as opposed to just unofficial. But 32 and 3/4 inch, 3/4 inch arms, that is not great for the offensive tackle position. 9.37 hands. So again, you're looking at a guy who's a little bit undersized for the offensive tackle spot, but I think that he's going to have the opportunity to fail at offensive tackle. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. You'd like to see him get up to 310, 315, but if he has to play at 300, that's not the worst thing in the world. 33.5-inch vert. That is a score of 9.81. A 9'7" broad jump is a score of 9.82. A 5 flat 40-yard dash. This is a guy who moves very, very well. If you want to remember Joe Thuney, remember C.J. Hansen is listed as a guard. If you want to remember Joe Thuney, this is the type of guy that's going to put you in that mindset. Not saying that he's going to be Joe Thuney, right? But he has the same type of athletic profile. He has the same movement skills as Joe Thuney. He does not have the extreme technique that Joe Thuney had. Joe Thuney is an absolute technician at offensive guard, and C.J. Hansen is not that right now. We don't know exactly what he looks like anymore, right? He did spend a good portion of the year basically practicing, right? So he was not on the field a whole lot. We're going to get that in a minute. I am surprised he didn't do the cone drills because he does move very well. Maybe he knew he wasn't going to time very well. I don't know what it is, but he does have a lot of movement skills. He is fast for the offensive line positions, and he's got bend. He can move. He's a real athlete, so it does surprise me that he did not do the athletic agility testing. He played 31 snaps versus the Broncos that final week of the season, which has been a week that the Chiefs take off with their starters because their playoff position is already locked down. It has been that for basically as long as Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback. And he did okay versus a good defense in what was supposed to be a redshirt season. He also played 1 snap of special teams in that game. I think that C.J. Hansen, probably offers the greatest upside of anyone on the offensive line short of Joshua Simmons. This is a guy, again, lower competition in college, but he was very, very good in those positions. And I would be very surprised if he does not get the chance to fail at offensive tackle just based on his athleticism. Now, the last two guys on this list, one will be surprising, and that is Joey Lombard, an undrafted interior offensive lineman. He is massive for the center position, 6'5", I believe 305 pounds. We get this, basically the only thing you can find on him, 2025 NFL Small College Mock Draft. What round one might look like if teams could only select non-FBS players, a different mock to spice things up a bit, while also introducing some players you might not be familiar with. This is basically just an interesting way to rank the Division III players. This is from CBS by Emory Hunt. They have Joey Lombard ranked as the 28th player to the Lions. Lombard had a really good showing against Wisconsin this season, and I'm shocked there isn't much discussion about the 6'5", 309-pound center. Combining a good 309 pounds, I guess. Combining a good career with the Coyotes and a solid week at the College Gridiron Showcase, Lombard will find himself on a professional roster come late April. This is another guy that I think ends up being a practice squad player, but maybe only for a season, and that is on a Chiefs team with a very strong interior offensive line, maybe the greatest center guard combo in the league with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. I do think that Kingsley Suamataia will excel at offensive guard, but this player, Joey Lombard, is a guy who I think that he offers more upside than Nick Allegretti, while Nick Allegretti had good athleticism and good technique, and you could see his history as a wrestler on the field. Joey Lombard is I'm not going to say a better football player, but he is perhaps a more pure football player than was Nick Allegretti. I think that he has upside versus Mike Caliendo on the interior, and size, reach, everything over Mike Caliendo. I think that he could add some weight and become just a brick in the center of the offensive line at the center position. I don't know that he is an offensive guard. I think that he has the upside to be an offensive guard. I don't think there's any chance that he's anything outside of the interior offensive line. I don't think that he offers any versatility at offensive tackle, but you don't have to, right? And Joey Lombard is a guy, a late addition for the Kansas City Chiefs as a UDFA, and I think that he will be an NFL player, maybe not this year, but probably in the future. And then we have, finally, Ethan Driscoll. 6'8" 3/8 inches, 313 pounds, 35 3/8 inch arms, a 10.5 inch hand. He played 3 special team snaps versus Buffalo. He played 4 offensive line snaps versus the Broncos in that final week of the season as a redshirt, what was supposed to be a redshirt season, and 1 special team snap. Again, I think that Ethan Driscoll was a prime candidate for the practice squad last year, but the Chiefs knew that if they did that, someone would poach him from their practice squad, and they would no longer have Ethan Driscoll, which forced them to carry him on the roster for the entire season. You see that great reach, 35 3/8 inch arms. I don't think he's the best at extending his arms. I don't think that he has the greatest technique, but he can move for a guy his size. This is a massive offensive lineman that might not have the athleticism to play tackle. I think that he is an offensive guard in the future, but if he's forced to play right tackle because of injury or something, he can probably hold his own. Ethan Driscoll is an interesting character along the offensive line. He has height and reach that you do not see very often. His problem is he might be a bit of a tweener. He might not have the athleticism necessary to play tackle, but he has the athleticism necessary to play guard. I don't know if he has the bend necessary to get down into that 3-point stance, 60 snaps per game, and fire off. So that is the concern in my eyes with Ethan Driscoll, but he he's going to be an NFL offensive lineman. He's going to be on someone's 53-man roster this year. He's in an interesting position with the Chiefs because they have all of this talent on the offensive line, and he might be good enough to be a trade candidate. We saw this a few years ago with Yasir Durant, who played very few snaps for the Chiefs before being a trade candidate and finally being traded to the Patriots in return for a 7th-round pick. I've said this a million times, that ended up becoming Jalen Watson. So even if he's not an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs this season, he could provide assets for the Chiefs to use in the future. We have seen Brett Veach work some magic with those late-round picks. So those are the offensive tackles that will be training camp darlings, and you're going to want to keep an eye on in St. Joe for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, I'm going to be back with defensive players with wide receiver. The wide receiver video is going to be insane. Not a whole lot going on at running back for the Kansas City Chiefs that are maybe training camp darlings, but there will be a video for them. Defensive backs, linebackers, going to be a very fun video. But anyway, guys, that is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button, stick around for more, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.